Today, we're going to take a look at the priority level of each state for the upcoming Senate elections. This is going to be the same for both sides because they each have states they've got to defend and places they can go on offense. Now, it's still pretty early to know where the exact focus is going to be because candidates could get in and out of the race. The dynamics in the national environment could shift. Some states could go up, some states could go down. But for right now, we've got a pretty good foundation on where all the attention is going to be. So I've got 4 different ratings here: no priority, low, medium, and high. And again, it's going to be the same for both sides. If one party is going on offense, the other party is going to have to go on defense. So let's get into this. Let's see where a lot of the dollars are going to be spent next year. First, let's do the no priority states. These are going to be the safe red, the safe blue states, the ones where there's no point in either side putting any funding into these states under reasonable circumstances. From west coast to east, those are going to be Oregon, Idaho, Wyoming, Colorado, South Dakota, Kansas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Louisiana, Illinois, Kentucky, Tennessee, Mississippi, Alabama, West Virginia, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, New Jersey, and Delaware. Now we'll talk about a couple of these before we get to the next tier. For example, Colorado. It's way too blue of a state. I don't think the Republicans should focus on this state even for a second. Democrats as well. I don't think they have anything to defend here. In Kentucky, it's kind of the opposite. McConnell is retiring, but unless Andy Beshear gets into the race, I think Republicans have nothing to sweat here. Democrats should look elsewhere. And in New Jersey, yes, it's true that this margin was way closer than most people expected in the presidential election. And yeah, maybe it could get redder in the future. The GOP doesn't have much of a bench here. The Dems have Cory Booker. The environment is expected to be favorable, at least a little bit for the Dems. Because of that, I don't think either side should pay any attention to the Garden State. But let's go up a little bit to the low priority states, and we've got a bunch. We'll talk just a little bit about each one. And these are states that are not massively safe for each side. But unless the right candidates get into the race and a wave take shape, there should be little focus on these states for the time being. So let's get Alaska out of the way. Like a bunch of these other states, we're not totally sure if the incumbent is going to run. That's going to be Dan Sullivan, the Republican. And there's questions about who his opposition would be, even if he does. The best bet for the Dems is likely to be Mary Peltola. But even if it is her, I still think Sullivan would have an edge. If it is a big blue wave and it's Peltola, then I think there could be some serious competition here. Maybe the seat could flip under optimal circumstances. But in terms of where you're going to spend your time and your money, Alaska should not be near the top of the list. Next, in Montana, I'm going to assume it's going to be Steve Daines again for the Republicans. He fended off a challenge from popular Governor Steve Bullock 6 years earlier. That was by a 10-point margin. So unless everything lines up for the Dems, such as John Tester getting into the race and there being a big blue wave, I don't think there's much to say about this state. Next, we've got New Mexico. Now, this is way down to the list of Republican targets. I think they have almost no chance of flipping it. However, like New Jersey, this is a state that theoretically could be more competitive in the future, but I think they might be more interested in keeping the margins as narrow as they can go. That could set the table for future statewide races potentially being more competitive. It's going to be similar in Nebraska. Now, we might see Dan Osborne make another run at it, but again, even if he does, I think it's going to be all about the margins. This is at least a moderately red state. I think the Dems would be a little bit out of their league to flip this state, but like the GOP in New Mexico, I think they want to keep the Republicans on their toes and keep the margins as close as they can get. So it is a low priority, but it's not completely non-existent. Then we're going to go to Texas. This is one of those states where each side loves to point out data they find favorable for their cause. It's either totally solidly red and Republicans have nothing to worry about, or Dems are actually in the hunt to flip it. Per usual, I think it's somewhere in the middle. But after Ted Cruz, who I thought was a weaker candidate in 24, outperformed everybody's expectations, I think there should be little attention paid to Texas unless Ken Paxton becomes the nominee for the Republicans and Dems have a great candidate along with a great national environment. Until that happens, I don't think there's a whole lot to say about this. Now let's move up to Minnesota. Now this is an open seat. Theoretically, it should be more competitive. Harris did not even win the state by 5 points, but with a weak GOP bench and a potentially blue-leaning national environment, I don't really think either side should spend a lot of time here. If it's not Angie Craig, it's likely to be somebody else that should put the Dems over the top. So I know Republicans have hopes of making this state competitive. It's not super blue, but I think they should be looking at other places first. Right south of there, we've got Iowa. Here's one where Dems are going to be hopeful, but Republicans know that all they have to do is get anything close to the presidential turnout and they should be able to carry the state. It's possible the polls look more competitive before the election, but the best guess is that would fizzle, polarization would kick in, and ultimately it would be a waste for either side to spend a lot of attention on this state. Now it's kind of similar in the next state, that's Ohio. Now there's going to be an incumbent Republican, John Husted. So yeah, maybe the Dems run Sherrod Brown, maybe they put up Tim Ryan, maybe it's somebody else. And again, maybe the polling early on, it does show it competitive. competitive, but like we've seen many times before, once the election rolls around, it's likely that it fizzles and Republicans carry the state. So if I were the Dems, I would not spend a lot of time on this state. Keep an eye on it, but it's likely to be fool's gold. That's going to be similar in the Northeast and New Hampshire. Given that it's an open seat, Republicans are hoping to go on offense here, but unless Chris Sununu changes his mind, they're going to have to go down to a lower tier candidate. So even though Trump got a higher percentage here as a Republican than he did in 2020, 2016, and higher than Romney in 12 and McCain in 08, as of right now, and again it is early, I think it's unlikely that they should seriously contest this seat. Now maybe Scott Brown makes it more competitive, but I think Chris Pappas is clearly going to be favored, and this also feels like it would be fool's gold for the Republicans. It's also going to be similar in Virginia. Until Glenn Youngkin gets into this race and still looks like a strong candidate, I don't think the Republicans should really spend any time here at all. It's also going to be the inverse in South Carolina. I don't expect Lindsey Graham to win by 16 points, but I don't think either side really needs to spend any dollars in this state. And it's going to be the same in Florida. Now, this is a pretty low priority. It is a special election just like Ohio, but Republicans have Ashley Moody. She's not a weak candidate, and we do still have to get through primaries. But the last few elections, I seem to consistently underestimate the Republican support here by a few points. Even if I don't underestimate it, this should be pretty much off the table for the Dems under almost any reasonable circumstance. But it's Florida, it's not Oklahoma. It's enough to keep on the back burner, but not completely forget about the entire time. So those are the low priority states. Now let's go up to the medium priority. We've only got one. This is Michigan. It's an open seat. Dems on defense here. Republicans looking to go on offense for a pickup. Trump won the state in 24, but the Dems also won in the Senate. It's been a while here since Republicans actually won a Senate seat, and it might come down to the candidates. I did underestimate the Republican support here just a little bit in 24, so I don't think this is the top focus, but both sides are going to spend some money here. If Republicans actually flip this seat, that would send shockwaves through election night. So Dems can't take it for granted, but they should have a little bit of an edge. Now, the remaining three states are going to be where all the action is. Let's go through them real quick. Let's start in Maine. Here it's Susan Collins, and you know the story. The state leans blue federally, but Collins is in danger. In 2020, she was clearly underestimated in the polling. So I guess there's a chance she doesn't even run. If she doesn't, then Dems could easily pick this seat up. Even if she does run for a sixth term, Dems are going to try their hardest to pick this seat up. This is one of the few targets they've got to expand on an unfavorable map. And even though a lot of the base is not a big fan of Susan Collins, they're probably going to be hoping that the Republicans do pour a lot of money into this race and hold a red seat in a blue state. So this is going to be a huge race. It's also going to be huge in North Carolina. And we have to assume Tom Tillis makes it through a primary. And it's unclear exactly who the Democrat is going to be, but my expectations are to see Tillis trailing in the polling at least a little bit leading up to the election. So he could absolutely be defeated, especially if it's a blue wave. Republicans have got to fight to hold this seat. Federally, it does lean red, but they've got a Democrat for governor. And there's no doubt that the money from both sides is going to be flowing into this state. The last state is Georgia. Here, Dems are going to be on the defensive. Republicans have a rare pickup opportunity. Both senators here are Democrats, but they've got a Republican governor and Trump won the state. I think there's going to be a ton of money spent here regardless, but a lot of the outcome is going to depend on if Brian Kemp actually runs for the Republicans. If it's somebody like Marjorie Taylor Greene, I would expect Dems to hold it more comfortably. But these 3 or 4 states are pretty much where all the focus is going to be. Dems have pickup opportunities in Maine and North Carolina, Republicans in Georgia and maybe Michigan. After that, a lot of the dynamics would have to change before these states actually come onto the map. So if they're not competitive, it's going to come down to the margins. So Dems technically have to pick up 4 seats if they want outright control. They're not going to get it done with just North Carolina and Maine. So on this map, Dems are going to be glad Trump is in the White House. So those are the priority levels for each state in the upcoming Senate elections. Let me know in the comments. After the obvious states, do you think there's a realistic opportunity for either side to go on offense? How do you think the priority level could change by next year? Let me know down below on your way out. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Join if you'd like to support the channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.